Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Kenner Grissom, the Director of Special Projects and Programs at Yiddishkayt. And I want to welcome you to tonight's event, an exploration of Nothing There, a multidisciplinary dance performance piece created by choreographer, filmmaker Alexx Shilling and her team of collaborators. For those of you who don't know, Yiddishkayt is an intercultural arts nonprofit founded in Los Angeles over 25 years ago, with a focus on preserving and promoting Eastern European and Yiddish culture and defining points of connection with immigrant cultures and marginalized communities today. The Wallis Annenberg Helix Fellowship is Yiddishkayt's signature cultural travel immersion program that invites artists and scholars to experience the borderlands of Eastern and Central Europe and to foster new creative works that are inspired by and develop as a response to this experience. As Alexx will share with us, Nothing There was inspired by her 2017 visit to Belarus and Poland as part of Helix. A little bit of background about Nothing There. This work examines the experience of visiting sites that once teemed with Jewish life and Yiddish culture before World War II, and the themes in this piece have great resonance for us today. And to just give you a little bit more background, because of the cancellation of this piece's live premiere during the COVID-19 shutdowns, Nothing There has been adapted for film, co-created with filmmaker Tasso Papadakis and composer Zach Kennefic. So tonight we'll directly engage with these themes with all of you in the virtual space, opening with moments of shared ritual, moving on to watching the film together, and then participating in an interactive discussion. You will be prompted at various moments tonight to share your comments, and we encourage you to do so. Our special guests tonight include novelist, poet, and Helix Fellow Moriel Rothman-Zecher, choreographer, filmmaker, scholar, and activist Vic Marks, dancer and frequent collaborator of Alex's, Daniel Miramontes, and myself. I'm also a Helix Fellow and a writer. And a little bit more about Alexx. Alexx is a true multi-hyphenate. Her original choreography and experimental films have been presented nationally and internationally. She holds an MFA in dance from UCLA and a bachelor's degree in dance from Skidmore College. As a performer, Alexx has been working with Vic Marks since 2010 and has performed with many independent choreographers in both New York and Los Angeles. She is also the artistic director of Alexx Makes Dances. So many things to say about Alexx and her body of work, so we invite you to please visit her website, alexxmakesdances.com. So with that, let's bring Alexx on. Hello.
Hello, thank you so much for that introduction. Can you hear me okay, Lisa?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. Yes. I'm just so happy to welcome everyone here, Here for Now, this virtual space. And I want to thank Yiddishkayt and my collaborators who made the work you're going to view tonight. This project, Nothing There, has been one where so many people brought their fullest selves to creating together. And I'm so grateful for that. You know, we often give land acknowledgements while online, and it's been so important to do this because they make us mindful of the impacts of colonial power, destruction, and atrocity, while honoring Indigenous wisdom and rightful connection to land. All over the world, there have been generations of change, land and water and dust and people before people before people. And sifting through these layers of time and space helps orient us towards a way forward. So I first want to share an extended land acknowledgement, and I invite everyone here to introduce yourselves in the chat by sharing the following. Tell us where you are, geographically speaking, and if you know what was there about 100 years before. And then all the way back to the earliest memories of who or what was there, where you are now. So I am presently on West Main Street in Freehold, New Jersey, Bruce Springsteen's hometown and the epicenter of the Battle of Monmouth during the Revolutionary War. The house I'm in was built in 1900 on the unceded territory of the Lenni Lenape people. Lisa, will you tell us where you are?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. I am presently on Somerset Drive in the West Adams neighborhood of Los Angeles in a house built in 1924. on the unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva people. I don't know who lived here before, but I do know that West Adams is one of LA's oldest neighborhoods, and it's known for its diverse styles of architecture, with most of its buildings built between 1880 and 1925, which for LA is old.
Right, right. Thank you. I'll just read those 3 pieces again for you as you're kind of considering and writing. Tell us where you are, geographically speaking, what was there about 100 years before, and then all the way back to the earliest memories of who was where you are. And as people are writing in, I just want to invite us all to keep the chat active tonight. And if there are any other comments or questions that we don't have time to address, I'm planning to do a postscript in Instagram Live in the coming days. Also, you'll be able to access this event through YouTube or Facebook after we finish tonight. So if you're not able to take everything in and read what's in the chat, you can always go back, as I know I will be doing.
Fantastic.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, I've asked everyone to gather a few items or artifacts for this occasion, and I hope you have these nearby. Maybe you have them as well, Lisa.
I do.
First, something that grows or comes from the earth. And if you don't have that actual object, choose something that you can see through your window or conjure it in your mind's eye and write it in the chat. I have with me a pile of rocks and dried dandelion heads that my daughter picked earlier today. What do you have, Lisa?
I have some leaves from a lemon tree. And actually, when I was picking it today, this tree was planted. It was just a little sapling when we moved in 6 years ago, and now it's actually bearing fruit. So there was a lemon on it today.
Fantastic. I'm going to read a few that are coming up. A small cactus plant, a sprig of orange mint from my garden. And next, something that belonged to someone you have lost, whether literally or figuratively. And if you don't have that as well, you can simply imagine it in your mind's eye and go ahead and write it in the chat. I have with me tonight one of my Grandma Rose's floral headscarves that she wore.
Can we see it? I want to see it.
Oh yeah. This one looks like it was actually, it's very dark where I am, but this one looks like it was perhaps for mourning.
Wow, that's beautiful. It's kind of sheer. Yeah, I love that. I have a ring. It's a ring that would belong to my grandmother. I don't know if you can see it. It's got these sort of cloisonne, I think you call it, where it's got these different pieces of different stones in it. And I know that she got it when she was traveling with my grandfather somewhere in Europe. I don't know where, but I keep it close.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm seeing Kara McDowell says, my mother's wristwatch, a friend's necklace. Vic Marks is wearing her mom and grandmother's wedding rings. Henry Shilling has Leon Goldstein's drawing of a New York skyline from the late 1920s. That's my grandfather. So beautiful. So lastly, I invited you all to bring something to drink, or if you don't have something to drink, an imagined libation. And let's just take these things with us as we traverse the evening together. Now, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Moriel Rothman-Zecher. As Lisa mentioned, Moriel is a former Helix fellow, a novelist and poet whose work I'm in awe of, and a kindred voice to help bring us closer to the film. So I'm thrilled that Moriel agreed to be here. Hi, Moriel.
Hi, Alex. Hi, everyone. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
I'm so glad to be here. I am calling in today from West Philadelphia. which is also the unceded land of the Lenni Lenape people. And I just learned in researching for this that fewer than 1,000 of the Lenape are estimated to have survived the forced march west of over 15,000 people who were here before settlers arrived. And about 100 years ago, just 10 or so blocks west of where I am right now, my grandmother lived with her two little sisters, her father, who had immigrated from Romania to Philadelphia, and her mother, whose parents had immigrated from Ukraine and Moldova to Philadelphia as well. And I am going to read a poem today. This is a poem I wrote when I was also with a cohort of the Helix Fellowship in central Belarus in 2019. In what may be the last for a while of the Helix groups to go to Belarus. And so there's a sense of, we got there at this kind of final moment, although of course we didn't know it was a final moment then. And this poem was written after spending an evening at a resort, a sort of dacha for guests. And there was a room in the resort place that had stuffed exotic animals that the owner of the resort had killed over the years. So there were, monkeys and tigers and voles and everything else. And before this, we'd gone to another village where my great-great-grandparents had lived, and my great-great-grandparents had emigrated to America, and their friends, their colleagues, their lovers, the kids they babysat, the people who were their rivals, their business partners, the folks they argued with, the folks they resented, the folks they adored, who didn't make it out, were all killed on one day in 1942 in a field, except, according to the villagers we met, except there was one Jewish girl who survived because a non-Jewish family pretended that she was their daughter. So this is the poem that came to me that afternoon.
We're going to give you the space, so we'll see you after.
Great. It's called Kobylnik. Kobylnik, Belarus, 2019. It is not much of a revelation to the flowers how we kill and tend bunches of river sticks and sweet little hats for the wheat, it writhes and wags its many tongues in our tendermost openings. Lo, before us lay 1,000 drivers with their carts of ware, their exposed bellies. The cat with its left eye left gazes from the tower top, while the wheat calls out in anger. The angel of evenings tarries, singing to her comrades in arms to lay down beside the drivers and their husbands, to lay down beside the children and their parcels of ants and intestines, to lay along their banks of ache and all the tender scents that seems to have left this town to escape the heat for the week at our great uncle's dacha, nestled between a horned owl and a rifle and a field of rifles, while the wheat winks at its little friend, its only sibling, while the dust from the water rises like steam, and the sky is filled with golden dust, and the field grows restless with the wheat and the children.
Thank you so much, Moriel. As we all let that resonate, let's raise a glass and toast to memory, to being alive, to our ancestors.
Chaim Tevim L'Shalom.
Salut L'chaim.
Thank you so much, Moriel. We'll see you on the other side. We're going to watch Nothing There together in the virtual space. So, Alex, if you have anything else to add, otherwise we'll roll into it.
I'll just add that there might be a Vimeo link being shared with you in case you need it. And we'll see you there on the other side.
See you on the other side. Hi, everyone. Because this is live, we're just going to hold for a few seconds, waiting for the go-ahead here. So we can all enjoy our cocktails in the moment, in the space between. Here we go. Enjoy, everyone.
Smorgon. 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 It's more gone. It's more gone. It's more gone. Smargon. 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 Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Hi, friends.
Hey.
That was so beautiful. I was completely transported. Thank you for transporting me.
Likewise, what a gift to watch it every time.
Thank you both.
I just want to say how sort of poignant and meaningful I think it is that we are here together as Helix Fellows, sort of bringing our creations to life in this way. So I just wanted to put that into the space.
I also felt as I was watching the film this time, I felt that there were these threads of conversation between the poem I wrote, between the choreography here, these moments of, there are fields, there are parcels, there is embodiment, there is loss, there is connection, and I like thinking about the fact that perhaps both of us, each of us, dipped a little bit into something that was, rather than thinking that everyone sort of sprouted their own creation from their separate soils.
Yeah. I had a similar feeling listening to your words tonight, Moriel. Actually, the repetitive image of laying down, and how that became such a motif in the work for us. And like sensing the texture of the wheat and sensing the texture of the whatever was underneath. I mean, for me, I just couldn't sink deep enough into the ground, and I felt that evocation in your work and words.
And I think another thing I noticed watching it this time is there's a sense through art, through whether it's poetry or dance or film, in which one can not only focus on the catastrophic, right? This film, this piece that you put together, can't be read as singularly catastrophic, because there are also these moments that verge on joy, or that verge on sensuousness, or that verge on playfulness, right? When the dancers spread their arms and become airplanes or become birds, and they're running around the field. And I think in some ways, to me, it's and I think that this is part of what I learned, I think many of us learned from the philosophy of Helix, is that the true act of memory can't just be to look at everything as a sort of a singular catastrophe, because that flattens and erases the strange pulsing humanity of everything that was lost.
That's perfectly put. And I think with that, we will say goodbye to you, Moriel, for now. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here and for sharing your words.
Thank you both. And thank you, Alexx, for your work.
Thank you, Moriel. Looking forward to another time together.
Me too.
Ah, excellent. I'm full, but there's more. There's so much more. We're going to make a shift now, and we're going to invite choreographer Vic Marks to lead a discussion with you about your work and your film. So welcome, Vic.
Hi, Vic. I'm so thrilled to have you here. And Lisa gave a beautiful introduction, but I just also want to say what an incredible influence and inspiration you've been for me. You're not only a dance maker, filmmaker, an educator, but an instigator and a mentor of mine and a friend and a longtime collaborator. So I'm so happy to see you. Hi.
Hi. I'm so very glad to be here with you, Alexx, and to support and honor this work. So a land acknowledgement, as it were. I'm here in Los Angeles in the unceded lands of the Gabrielino and Tongva peoples. And my home, which I'm not really in right now, I'm in my office, sits on land that was turned by Spanish colonialists and then Mexican settlers into bean fields. And you used to be with me here in Los Angeles, and now you're in New Jersey, where we both grew up. Well, and I'm happy to be with you again. And let's take a bit of time to speak further about Nothing There. I'm so struck by, in both of your projects, yours and Moriel's, the way that you have worked to create memory despite memory having been erased or history having been erased. And I wonder, just to dig in a little bit, if I could ask all of us here this evening to just remember one image that might have stayed with you from the film, and any single image. It's not really, I mean, there's so many, and just describe it in the chat. And I'm going to ask Alexx to riff off of what you write. So we need you to write some image that stayed with you from the film in the chat. Give you a moment. One of the images that stayed with me as I was watching the film was looking at a map and then marking that map onto our bodies, the ways in which we are both traversing these representations of land and that they become part of us.
And the map that you see in the film is a hand-drawn map of the city of Smorgon in present-day Belarus. And it's just one of many maps that we used in the process. But also these maps from Yiddishkayt books, from memorial books that were made after World War II, as refugees were remembering their hometowns and trying to remember the scale of them. Where was the Jewish cemetery or the mikvah? We use these maps on the Helix Fellowship to help us actually move through cities and towns and try to orient ourselves. Sometimes looking for a cemetery and finding a parking lot. Or a judo center where a synagogue was once sitting.
Alexx, a lot of folks are responding to the image of the, as Deborah Cash says, the green felt in quotes, meadow, and the little trees, for example.
Trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying to Moriel earlier, I couldn't, when I was on land in Belarus and Poland, I just couldn't get closer to the earth. And I think I had this kind of realization for myself that what I was searching for, I mean, figuratively, but also quite literally, was under the earth. And so the green felt was sort of a way for me to play with that. And to actually allow us as performers to become the earth, or to play in subterranean spaces, and to also construct towns and destroy them on the spot. I'm seeing the emergence from the shimmering. Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, I wanted to hear your thoughts about the emergent blue sparkles.
Yeah. I mean, an idea that I think that's the only moment where it gets pulled through. But in my sense of sort of future imagining, I think I had a whole story in my mind of what if those beneath the land could, 200 years from now, emerge, and what would they say, and what language would they speak, and what songs would they sing? And that to me is the cloak of the future emergent messenger.
Well, I imagine that your ancestors would have been very, very pleased to have been given blue and green sparkles to wear this evening. Let me shift a little bit here, if you don't mind, Alexx.
Sure.
I want to know why you made this film. What was on your mind that brought these images to life, that caused them into being?
Yeah, I mean, on a basic level, I think I just needed to process my experiences, and my movement practice is my way of doing that. I had sort of imagined that I would have all this time to dance in the spaces that we were visiting, as that has been a part of my field work, but our days were so densely packed, both physically and emotionally. So as soon as I got back to Los Angeles, I just got into the studio, and a big part of my movement practice focuses on receptivity, on practicing letting go of things like tension in the body or expectations, judgment, becoming more porous as a way to experience more. And that's what I think I was relying on those practices, like attuning myself to the environment and combining that with the historical research. That's such a big part of what Helix was also offering us. So I figured I'd get home and I would just let this piece come out, and then I could get on with it and make some works that were had more specific content. But this really took its time, in part because I also felt it was important to bring in other performers. I think I was working in solo for a few weeks, and the communal aspect of traveling with cultural historians, artists, students, that piece was so central to how I was experiencing Yiddish land that I felt like I needed to bring in some other performers. So then the work of translating the experience to them became sort of the next aspect of the project.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the other performers, because I think that this becomes both your story and so many others of us, our stories about memory and loss and ancestors. And I think Carol McDowell made a mention of that in the chat, just about, oh, thank you. I don't know where to read, but as relating her own experience to what we're seeing, and it helps her to make up her own memories. I wonder if we could take this just a little bit further even, and invite one of your performers to join us here in this conversation. I know Daniel Miramontes is here, and he performed in Nothing There. Alexx, would you like to introduce Daniel?
Absolutely. Daniel Miramontes is a most generous movement artist who I first met through the process of making Nothing There when we were in residency at PAM in Highland Park. And Daniel's a choreographer, a movement educator, performer, costume designer, and also fellow co-founder of the Gold Series and Gold Collective in Los Angeles. So welcome, Daniel.
Welcome. And where are you?
Where am I? I am presently on Long Beach Boulevard in Long Beach, California, in my office at Renaissance High School for the Arts. And within the span of 100 years, this school has gone through various transformations and name changes, and has seen many, many, many students. And I'm here on the unceded territory of the Tongva people.
Well, welcome. So, Daniel, I'm so glad you're here, because just apropos of thinking about Alexx moving from a solo or an individual inquiry into her past, and reimagining a past that has left very few marks. What was it like for you to be inside someone else's story? And does it feel like your story?
Yeah, thank you, Vic. Well, I think that, like, as a dancer, we're often asked to be inside other people's stories, and learning how to navigate our own personal stories within these new stories. And I think that this one in particular, Nothing There, is one that I hold very dear to my heart. And I'm gonna allow myself to kind of like go all over the place a little bit, and then I'll like come back. But I think that like during one of our first rehearsals in the fall of 2017, Alexx had asked if I had ever been a part of someone's process for an extended period of time. And I said no out loud, but in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, I hope I get to continue working on this process because I love this so much, you know? And yeah, that was 2 weeks at PAM at that residency. And at that time, it was just three of us. It was Alexx, one of my closest friends, Madison Clark, and myself. And so it allowed for plenty of time to be in conversation, to get to know each other through movement, through playing, through a lot of different things. And I think like going back to like, what is it like for me to be inside someone else's story? My imagination wanted to travel to these places and cities that Alexx talked about. And I wanted to see myself standing in the streets of the maps and images that she would share with us. And there was one that like really just stands out so much. And Alexx was sharing about being inside a building and realizing that the floor was covered in bird bones. And so, yeah, so like trying to take myself to that place and thinking about these bones while improvising, trying to take flight, trying to feel what that might feel like, you know, and then like throughout the process of the time that we spent working on this, you know, that had different meanings, you know, like what do these bird bones dance like at the disco at 2 a.m. when everyone has left and there's 3 of us or 4 of us, you know, or I don't know. There was so much to play with and to be in conversation with. And in being in this process, there was this constant like internal dialogue for me of how do I become these ideas that hold such deep meaning and importance? And it was really important for me to be honest. Like I didn't want to just perform and I didn't want to just do the job, you know. I think like the nature of this work really allowed me the space to dive deep into the process. And I really, really care about this work.
Daniel, can I ask, it sounds like Alexx's story and Alexx's efforts to reimagine a past became your story. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yes. I think oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it was just like and I'm so fortunate to have been able to spend so much time in this process where it really just like, it feels like it's a part of my story, you know, in the process of building and shifting and using our voices to sing, creating landscapes with fabrics, making sounds. It was just so cool. So cool.
Wow. And I think especially in a time where so many of us feel so apart from one another and we're held apart through our different stories, just the very practice of inhabiting one another's stories and you know, you can't really step into someone's shoes, and yet with your imagination, with one's imagination, one can. And what a beautiful gift and blessing that you created this work together. I wonder, we talk about our past, looking into our past, and the ancestors will never know and may not even be able to name, but we're also in the midst of a pandemic, global crisis accompanied by great loss. And I'd like to think with you each about how the pandemic then is situated in this larger project of remembering. Daniel, could I ask you first, how has this pandemic heightened your sense of, could I say, both grief and possibility? Because this was made during the pandemic too, right? Yeah.
I think something that I was thinking about while I was watching this film is that I really just love dancing with my friends. And I think to see this film, we were able to dance together outside, and everything else, each one of us had a turn, this is your time slot when you get to dance, and then you got to go, and then someone else comes in, so I think, yeah, it's just having to navigate changes and still seeing this film and feeling really happy that that I get to see myself dancing with my friends.
Yeah. So I think one of what I'm hearing is that dancing with Alexx and your friends was the possibility, and maybe even the lifeboat that sustained you during the pandemic. So it's sort of also a time of double remembering the past as you remember your life right now and care for the people around you. Sorry for speaking so much. Alexx, I wonder if you would share with us a little bit your sense of how the pandemic paralleled your process of remembering, and particularly about that relationship of grief and possibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Daniel, you're just making me think of, the thing that I recognized right away once the shutdowns happened, which is that I don't dance. I love to dance alone, but that's not why I dance. I dance in community. That's how I learn. That's how I ask questions. That's how I feel like I can transform and remember why I'm alive. I mean, at the risk of sounding corny, it's true. And so, yeah, that just was really amplified for me. But also, this conversation is reminding me, and I think I had to keep coming back to this over the last 2 years, of the value of what we do in rehearsal and in practice and in research, that there's a value for us in that, even if the work doesn't get seen, right? In this case, it was like, what if this work doesn't get seen, and how much care we all put into it. And I felt really responsible for bringing it forward. But, I think for me, grief there's still a lot of grief in my work. It just continues to come back, being with my family's history, being with my cultural past. There's an emphasis of grief in the work because of that. But I really believe that the process of making the work and the atmosphere in the studio and the vulnerability that everyone brings is one where transformation is possible, or transmogrification of grief is possible. So, I think I just want to keep learning about how to configure the parameters that are necessary for us to be with our memories and be with our imaginations. And that's how memory, I think, is alive for me, is in these present practices, almost like choreographic mnemonic devices. You know, another piece that I just have to share is that I was 7 months pregnant when we shot this film. And firstly, we were just learning, how do you make a quartet during COVID? Nobody was vaccinated yet. It was in this window between the election and Thanksgiving. And we tried to stay 6 feet apart when we were out of doors, but I had to learn to try to edit solos together to feel the togetherness of what was so much a part of our practice. But also, you know, the slowing down time, the cancellations opened a door for my daughter Rosie to come into the world. And after many years of I think, allowing my art practice to so much be about looking back as a way to move forward, there's like moving forward with this human being who's showing that every day. So that was an immense shift.
So what I'm hearing you say is that we carry with us the lives, the traumas, the hopes, what you were saying, Alexx, the hopes of the generations that came before us, but we also have the capacity to lay the groundwork for those like Rosie who will come after us. And the pandemic has certainly reminded us of our mortality and fragility, and perhaps even of generational time. I want to bring us back to the chat because it feels so great to be embraced by those of you who are here with us and tapping in on your keyboard. Whether from the grief of generational loss or the griefs of these pandemic times, what senses of possibility have grown for you? With what new knowledge do you move forward? And feel free to respond in the chat. We'd love to have that, or just let this simmer inside you. How does grief allow us possibility? How can we move forward?
And Vic, something that you asked me in one of our conversations as we were preparing for tonight that has really stayed with me is, you said, how do you know that grief isn't laying the groundwork for something?
Right. It has to be, because we don't stay frozen ever in time. Time unfolds as we do. So, new things can come. Yes, Lisa says grief can be a portal. A portal for what new possibilities? You know, maybe more dancing. I sometimes feel it's just the recognition that not to take anything for granted. And Deborah Cash says, is it retreat, Deborah, or make space for thoughtful reflection?
Hi, Nicola. Oh, Nicola's here. Nicola says grief can remind us of our connectedness. And Waleska says it teaches us or shows our resilience and ability to thrive and not just survive.
Yeah, and Moriel reminds us that grief and joy are often accompany one another. Oh. And Melissa also about the importance of interconnectedness, which is not just like going and hanging out, right? It's an active way of being together with the environment.
Seeing this question being evoked of Jonas Salk's, are we being good ancestors? And that insightful question inspires me as I move forward.
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
Thank you all for these beautiful thoughts, because actually in this moment of interconnectedness, as we hear from you, we are given more possibility to attend to. So I want to thank you, Alexx and Daniel, and Moriel and Lisa for the opportunity to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much, Vic, also for always leading the way with wisdom and grace. And thank you, Daniel. I know we're going to dance together again.
Yeah, thank you, Alexx. Thank you, Vic.
I'm saying goodbye to you all for a moment, but I also want to thank everyone who's here tonight again for your incredibly generous and thoughtful contributions. And just to name again my phenomenal collaborating artists, Madison Clark, Justin Morris, Daniel Miramontes, Caitlin Sanchez, composer Zach Kennefick, my co-filmmaker Tasso Papadakis, lighting designer Carol McDowell, and costume designer Maria Garcia, who made that fabulous coat. And also the contributions of Rebecca Bryant and Pedro Ramirez, who are not here with us in the film, but contributed to the making of this project. Let's close tonight by bringing our awareness to our breath and to the objects that we gathered. Whether it's the objects that you have tangibly with you or what you're seeing outside. And let's just take a moment to simply attend to these items and notice their textures, their temperatures even. And consider perhaps the hands that have held the thing that you are now handling. Maybe there's even a smell, taste. And find a way to place or arrange your objects as you would points on a map. To connect them perhaps as you would a map. And in our last few moments together, you might continue to play with this after this live stream ends. Just notice the map that you've created and notice your body. What's there for you right now? Where are you? And if you would, drop a word or a phrase that is coming up for you as our last moment in the chat. And before we all go, or perhaps right after, I also invite you to take a picture of this object map to post, if it's your pleasure, on Instagram or Facebook with the hashtag mapping nothing there. so we can share in these later. And for me, connectivity is the word that's coming up. Connection. And I'm seeing thankful, possibility, beauty, liberation, inspiration, movement, humbled, make stuff. That's for us all. Again, again. Dance with friends. Thank you again to Yiddishkayt. Thank you to Claire and Lisa and Robbie. Moriel says magical. See you soon, everyone, somewhere.
Hi. Just thought I'd come back at the tail end to close out with you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for lending your time and your talent. I also want to thank all the participants for lending not only their time, their talent, but their inspiration and illumination of all these rich themes that we've dug into. And really thanks to all of you out there for participating. And of course, behind the scenes, Claire, as always. So with that, until next time, until we're live and we're screening this on a wall and in a garden or in a park, and everyone's invited.
That's the possibility. Very real. I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.